Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you happen to be around the world joining us. We certainly appreciate you participating in the March edition of Connecting the Dots with Dr. Food. David Hughes is joining us, as always, I believe, from your home today, which is a rare treat. I am Charlie Arna with the Center for Food Integrity. We develop tools and resources to help you build trust in the food system. And again, we are so fortunate today to be joined by Dr. David Hughes, Professor Emeritus at Imperial College London, and a globally recognized expert in food and beverage. As always, David, welcome.
Thanks very much, Charlie. Yep, here we are, first week of March, and spring is in the air in the UK. We've had 2 months of unrelenting rain, and then this week, suddenly the daffodils and the primroses are out. And I'm in Wales, yes, in home in Wales, and it's 60 degrees Fahrenheit
Oh,
today.
nice.
I'll take that. No, I'll take it.
Good for you. Good for you. Well, a lot has happened in the world since we spoke a month ago. There are certainly more questions than answers at this point about the situation in Iran. We've already seen it affect stock markets and oil prices globally. One question that we haven't spent much time considering or discussing is how in the world is it going to affect food and agriculture on an international scale? Now, David, you travel the world and you've got a network that's global. So, what's your perspective on this?
Right. Well, okay. Let me start. Let's go back mid-February, Charlie. And I mean, out of the blue, President Trump suddenly threatened 15% tariff on all goods and all countries. And as far as we could work out, largely in response to your own Supreme Court ruling that he'd overstepped the mark, his constitutional authority, when he brought in a great swath of tariffs in 2025. And that sort of surprised and really worried us. But then, of course, suddenly this weekend, along came the war in Iran, and all our concerns suddenly evaporated because we focused on that. I was intrigued. I was just looking at my Economist for this week, the magazine which I read every week. And what's its view? The Iran war has been a stunning aerial success, so it says. But at the political level, the direction is messy. And they ask, what's the plan? And actually, we see that in all our papers here. What's the plan? Is it regime change or what? But what we do know, and just as you mentioned, and what the worries are about, is that we know if it's sustained, if it escalates, then it will have a huge impact on food price inflation. And starting at the farm end, for example, fertilizers, oil and gas prices are up anyway, 30% week on week, but then they can go up and down. But we don't want another Ukraine-Russian war episode where suddenly just through the roof went prices, and that was dreadful for many consumers. So it's the impact it will have on freight costs, on processing costs. I mean, apropos of freight costs, I was amused, Charlie, to note that if you and I wanted to hire a super tanker to bring some oil from the Gulf right now, it cost us just the $400,000 per day.
Oh, my.
Which, for my mind, it put hiring a car for the weekend into a cocked hat, didn't it?
Yes, it does.
So I can see right across Europe, it's this sort of concern about global food chain vulnerability, particularly right now. And then if I take that to a UK perspective, it's concern about food security, because remember, we import 40% of our food, and what's more, not just for ourselves, but also for our animals. I mean, soybeans, from you guys, from the Brazilians, but I was just looking at chicken, for example. About a third of our chicken is imported, largely from Thailand, for example. That comes through the routes that are now under threat. So there's a real concern here, and it's driving our government to think about they want to increase agricultural food production in the UK. And that they have that on their list. And of course, that has a great support from farmers and domestic food processors. But then what about lower income households? Because if we produce more at home, that's lovely at one level, but it's also more expensive, frankly.
Right.
And we have specific problems that I was just looking that the US, you've got population 5 times that we have, 70. You've got 350, give or take. but you've got 25 times more arable land than we have.
Yep. Yep.
And so, we've got a limit that we're working with. It reminds me of the father of the American literature, Mark Twain, with buy land, they're not making it anymore. But you can see real, genuine government tensions in the UK because, yes, we want to produce more. But also, I note we've promised to build 1.5 million new homes over the next 2 years. We are planting at a rate of knots more forests for ecological reasons to store carbon, etc. And what's more, to try and have some more energy self-sufficiency, we're seeing a shift of arable land to solar energy. And so, on our little tiny patch of land here, there's under a lot of pressure. But going back to that mid-February when the tariffs were 15% or 10 to 15% increase right across the board, that'll have an impact on some sectors in the food industry, food and drink industry, actually, in the UK. And I'm taking an example here of Scotch whisky. Scotch whiskey is the largest food and drink export category by far in the UK. Our major market is USA. Most of it's produced in Scotland. 25% of Scottish distillers at the moment are in financial distress. What's that about? First of all, it's pressure on prices in your country with tariffs. Secondly, you're drinking less, as is much of the world. So there's lower demand domestically and globally towards less alcoholic drinks. And so I can see that terrific heritage industry is really shaky at the moment. But I just note in the USA, I was just looking at the stats that your wine imports, for example, are down close to 10% year on year. And that means you're buying, $600 million worth less wine. So globally, the wine industry is really shaky too.
Yeah, just great reflection and discussion of the integrated nature of all of this as we truly operate in a global food and beverage economy where one change has an untold cascade of impacts. So with that, I'm going to hang on to the last 18-year-old bottle of single malt that I have in my liquor cabinet. So let's shift gears and take a look at some new technology. Technology in agriculture has always fascinated me personally, and this one is a little bit different. It's not what I think about when I think about technology, but there's some exciting new technology on the horizon that has potentially big impacts. So, David, tell us a little more about that.
Right, and it's about data collection. It's data collection that we use to produce our monthly inflation figures, price inflation figures in the US, which it tends to suggest we should now have a yawn, but it sounds boring. But actually, I think it's really interesting because we've been following food price inflation really, very closely. So, what's it about? In history, how did we, and still do to a degree, collect price data for the price estimates for our inflationary forecasts each month? Well, until this month, we've got the better part of 300 field agents, which sounds exciting. Well, actually, they're price collectors, and they visit 150 locations right around the UK to monitor 750 representative items. Could be food and drink, but everything, furniture, the works, to get a measure of what's happening to prices and to see what the overall price inflationary impact is for a particular month. And of course, those items change as consumer behavior changes. So I noted last year, for example, air fryers suddenly, or the price of air fryers, are now included in the list. So are mats for Pilates. And collectors, they actually go to the shops and they have handheld devices. But as of this month, about half of the price collectors, dear Lord, are being replaced because we're starting to use data which is fed directly from supermarket tills. So,
Wow.
What will be the impact there? Well, first of all, clearly, you look at a supermarket, so a Walmart, how many SKUs is a supermarket? Hundreds of thousands. But, so we've got smaller stores. We've probably got sort of like 50, 60,000 items within a supermarket. So suddenly the data points are much more, and we don't rely so much on extrapolation. So, for example, the old way, we had 150 food and non-alcoholic drink items, which we'd price every month. Now there'll be thousands. An example example, last month, carrots were the representative vegetable, for example. There would be Braben apple or Gala apple would be the one apple that would be priced. And now we can do the whole shebang, if you will. And also, and I think really importantly, we can now take into account loyalty pricing and multi-buy promotional pricing, which wasn't collected and wasn't included in our estimations in previous months. And as you know, that actually that sort of loyalty card usage is, well, everybody has one, for goodness sake,
Right.
at least one. I've got loyalty cards for everybody, for example. And our CMA, that's the Competition and Markets Authority, I think that's sort of equivalent to your Federal Trade Commission. They reckon shoppers in the UK say, 17 to 25% buying loyalty price products.
Sure.
And so, it can have a substantial impact on the overall food budget. However, of course, food and drink spend only accounts for about 12 to 15% of the elements that we put in the total package to get inflation in the country. So it'll dial down the overall impact. But actually, even if it's very, very small, there's a much bigger impact if you consider that around a quarter of the UK government debt, and we've got a lot of debt here. It's about $1 trillion, for goodness sake. And that's index linked, meaning as interest payments rise and fall, then they have a significant impact on the consumer price index.
Sure.
And the monthly inflation figure is hugely important in influencing whether the Bank of England, in our particular case, raises or lowers interest rates related to mortgage levels. So getting a more accurate estimate of that is really, really important, particularly if it drives it down. Consumers
Sure.
would like to see that. But I was intrigued because I assumed you guys would have been into this years ago, but not so, of course. Your data collection is no more technologically efficient than ours, and your Bureau of Labor Statistics have got to, just like our data collectors, gathering thousands of prices across 75 urban centres. So I've no doubt it's coming your way too.
Yeah, I can understand, and it will. Data collection will definitely improve. GS1 is the latest member of CFI. They're the body that sets standards for barcodes globally. Current barcode has about 13 data points. They're transitioning to a 2D barcode. Will have 5,000 data points, which of course can be an engine for a lot of data collection and a lot of data sharing. We've got about 90 seconds left, David, to talk about a really significant problem with deer and venison in the UK. So go.
Right. Yes. UK has a deer problem, dear me. I was surprised. The wild deer population is its highest in 1,000 years. We've got 2 million animals. It's doubled over the last 50 years. How did that happen? Why are they reproducing at rate? Well, in history, the great estates in the countryside, the lords and ladies had huge estates with big fences around them, and they loved to have deer. But the great estates have gone into disrepair in the last 50, 60 years. And what have the deer's done? The deer have just walked out and they cause problems, as you'd expect, because what happens? Deer eat crops. And what's more, when you've got 1 million of them plus, they eat a lot of crops. And what's more, vehicle drivers don't like deer. Well, they love to see deer, but they don't like to run into them. If I look at our red and roe deer, they could be 150 all the way up to 400 pounds weight. They leave a dent in a car, God love them.
They
And
do indeed.
and I told you that our government has been encouraging us and themselves planting millions of trees. And what are the deer doing? They're eating the bark off them, for goodness sake. And it's a huge investment, and the deer are destroying it. And remember that in the UK, we're not a hunting country. Fox hunting is banned. There are no natural predators for us. But what's more, we're trying to introduce wolves and maybe even lynx to try and keep the deer numbers down. You did that 30 years ago with wolves in Yellowstone to manage the elk population, and it was extraordinarily effective. It worked really, really well. Why don't we just eat the venison, for goodness sake? Shoot them and eat them. Well, actually, venison is difficult to sell in restaurants. People aren't familiar with it.
It's not
At
very
home,
good.
it's difficult to cook because it's so healthy, as you
Yeah.
know, Charlie. It's got no fat, and so it's very easy for it to become really tough. Yet in some countries, deer can be a very valuable part of the agri-food industry. The biggest exporter of venison in the world is New Zealand. And what's more, by far, it's got 80% of global exports of venison. And most of that goes to the US and Germany, as it happens. And then, of course, it's not just about venison. Deer, or particularly the male deer, if you take their young horns, if you will, then you can harvest the velvet, which can be used in the pharmaceutical industry. And then the hides are pretty good for leather in the luxury markets. So, no, we've got a deer issue here.
We have much the same here, particularly in the Midwest, where my car has come into contact with at least two of them. And the deer got up and ran away, apparently uninjured, unlike my vehicle, which required some significant repair. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. I do want to shout out to one of our listeners I saw today, Craig Hunter from Canada. So, David, I don't know if you met Craig when you were there, but David has a dual citizenship and spent quite a bit of time in Canada. So it's always great to have friends that have joined us online. Make sure you join us again. Mark it on your calendar, April 2nd for the fastest 15 minutes in food. And David, thank you so much for joining us and always providing a global insight that is so valuable and very much appreciated.
Thanks, Charlie, and good luck to us all this month in a difficult month for the world.
Absolutely. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye now.